In the 5th year of my marriage to Liu Ryan, all our friends believed that I was the unwavering white moonlight in her heart. However, only I knew the truth. Not only did she carry on outside our marriage, constantly switching between young and fresh lovers, but she also often brought these companions to gatherings organized by our friends. Whenever such situations occurred, our friends would tease her, saying things like, "Aren't you always saying that the love of your life is Zhang Huan? Then why is it that your little flings change one after another?" She would respond without the slightest pretense, enjoying their attention with a carefree laugh as she replied, "Once you have your white moonlight, it just becomes another ordinary thing. Eventually, it gets tiresome. It's the young and fresh ones that are exciting, endlessly full of new and fun experiences." Hearing her words, I started counting the days until I could leave her. After all, I had grown just as weary of her. One late night, carrying a lunchbox, I went to Liu Ryan's office. By that hour, the building was almost empty, yet her office was brightly lit. The sound of my leather shoes echoing sharply in the corridor. Unable to cover the faint moans coming from inside, Liu Ryan and her new secretary hadn't even bothered to fully close the door. Their voices were clearly audible. "Ryan, you always push me so hard every time. Tell me, am I the one you love the most?" Peeking through the door's gap, I saw Fang Jiayu lying beneath Liu Ryan. She had probably been drinking. Her words carried a hint of intoxication, yet it was hard to tell how much truth was behind them. "I love you. Don't be ridiculous. I just enjoy being with you. The one I love most is, of course, my husband. He is my white moonlight, the only first love of my lost youth, and the love of my life. The person I love the most in this life is my husband." I stood there frozen, my hand already gripping the door handle, but I couldn't bring myself to push it open. How ironic it was, witnessing my wife's infidelity with my own eyes, only to hear her profess her love for me. My heart shattered into pieces, and I bit down so hard on the inside of my cheek that the soft flesh felt mangled. I remembered the day Liu Ryan proposed to me. She swore a solemn oath, "If I ever betray Zheng Huan in this life, let me die miserably, hit by a car when I step out, choked to death while drinking water, or drowned in the bath." I hadn't let her finish that oath. At the time, I had laughed softly, looking at her. "If you ever betray me, I'll punish you in my own way, Liu Ryan. I hope you never live to see that day." She would always reply, holding me tightly, swearing that day would never come. I had never thought that the woman who once gave everything to save my life would actually do something to betray me. 10 years had passed since I first met Liu Ryan. She had donated her bone marrow to save me. So much so that by the time she wasn't yet 30, her vitality was already half gone. But now, Liu Ryan, you have truly surprised me. I don't believe it. Liu Ryan, the one you love most can only be me. How could it possibly be that sickly man at home? The young man buried in Liu Ryan's embrace began to sob, his voice trembling with tears. "That sickly man at home can never satisfy you. How could you possibly love him the most?" Liu Ryan, feeling sorry for him, lowered her voice to comfort him. "It's you, all right? You men are so troublesome. Isn't it just a few words? Why make such a big deal out of it?" Fang Jiayu quickly lifted his tear-streaked face, half crying, half smiling, as he continued to nestle into Liu Ryan, moving slowly against her. He softly bit at her neck. "This isn't just words. This is a contest between men." Liu Ryan, seemingly enjoying herself, suddenly reached out and gripped Fang Jiayu's neck tightly. "You can mess around as much as you like in front of me, and I'll give you whatever you want. But don't let my husband find out about us. You know what will happen if he does. I won't let you off the hook." Standing in the shadow outside the door, I watched the scene unfold and suddenly laughed. If not for the circumstances, one might actually believe this man loved me deeply. So just because of my frail body, and the fact that I can't fully satisfy her in bed. That's Liu Ryan's reason for cheating? In that moment, I found that I no longer even wanted to step inside and confront her. I took out my phone, snapped a few photos, and silently left with the lunchbox in hand. Behind me, I could hear Fang Jiayu's voice pleading. I understand, President Liu. I was just saying it casually. I definitely won't let President Zheng find out. Good. I do like my obedient little Jiayu. Liu Ryan replied, her joyful laughter echoing in the room. Instinctively, I quickened my pace, walking away. Just as I stepped out of the building, a message from an unfamiliar number arrived on my phone. Mr. Zheng, were you satisfied with today's performance? If not, I can arrange a few more scenes for free. Without any expression, I replied to the message. Liu Ryan just warned you moments ago. Aren't you afraid of her finding out that you contacted me about this? President Liu is currently lying exhausted on top of me. How could she possibly care about such things now? But Mr. Zheng, you'd better get that divorce agreement ready as soon as possible. Otherwise, being thrown out later would be quite humiliating. Dazed, I stumbled my way back home. The night wind chilled me to the bone. By the time I arrived, it was already the dead of night. I assumed Liu Ryan wouldn't return home tonight. But to my surprise, she was at the villa. She was on the phone, seemingly trying to contact me. When she saw me push open the door and walk in, the anxious expression on her face immediately eased. Honey, where have you been so late at night? I've been looking everywhere for you. Liu Ryan thoughtfully took my coat and scarf, hanging them on the hat rack by the door. She was always so considerate, knowing my health wasn't great, never letting me do any heavy or tiring work. She had even hired a chef to handle our meals, strictly ensuring that I wouldn't spend too much time cooking each week. But when she noticed the lunchbox in my hand, a flicker of panic crossed her face. Honey, why are you carrying a lunchbox? I chuckled softly, placing the lunchbox in her hands. I was planning to bring it to you, but when I got to your office, it was already closed. So I came back. Relief visibly washed over Liu Ryan. Her tense body relaxed. Suddenly, she hugged me tightly, resting her head on my shoulder, putting on a deeply touched expression. Honey, you're so good to me. Even this late, you're still thinking about me. She opened the lunchbox, saw all her favorite dishes inside, and her eyes turned red with emotion. Without minding that the food had gone cold, she began eating in big bites. From my shoulder, I picked off a strand of white hair that had just fallen from her. I couldn't help but comment. It's already cold. Don't eat it. It's bad for your stomach. Heat it up before eating. But Liu Ryan, halfway through devouring the meal, waved it off. It's fine. Honey, even if the food you made had gone bad, I'd still eat it. I said nothing more, turning around and heading to the bedroom. On the side table lay a brooch. I recognized this brooch very well. I had just seen it pinned to Fang Jiayu's black suit earlier. At that moment, Liu Ryan hurriedly approached me, her face full of apology and guilt as she looked at me. Honey, the past few days have been so busy at work. I haven't been able to spend much time with you. I bought this gift for you. Once this busy period is over, I'll make sure to spend quality time with you. When we got married, Liu Ryan had promised that no matter how busy she was, she would always make time to have dinner with me. But now, thinking back, it had been nearly a week since we last shared a meal together. I didn't expose her lie. I picked up the brooch, noting the visible signs of use on it. I deliberately asked Liu Ryan, this brooch has scratches on it. Why does it look like it's already been used? Liu Ryan didn't show even a hint of guilt, meeting my gaze confidently. Maybe I didn't protect it well when I bought it. If it's scratched, then it doesn't suit my husband anymore. She calmly took the brooch back from me. I'll buy you a new gift tomorrow and give it to you. I smiled without saying anything. just watching her as she took back the brooch and let out a heavy sigh of relief. After washing up, I lay down in bed, and not long after, Liu Ryan joined me. She leaned in close, gently blowing warm breaths against my neck. A small hand slowly slipped under my pajamas, but I had no interest in playing her sweet, seductive games. The thought of her having just been with another man made my stomach churn with nausea. Stop it, Liu Ryan. I'm too tired tonight. Besides, with this frail body of mine, I can't possibly satisfy you. Can't make you feel excited. It was a simple, probing remark, yet it made Liu Ryan visibly uneasy. Her eyes darted nervously, and her voice lacked confidence. How could you say that, honey? Why would you even think that? Suddenly, I felt utterly drained. I closed my eyes, choosing not to respond. After a while, I sneezed violently several times. My face flushed unnaturally red, and my forehead burning hot. Noticing this, Liu Ryan, who had been watching me closely, panicked immediately. She quickly dressed herself, and without hesitation, carried me out the door and rushed to the hospital. When I regained some clarity, I found myself already in a hospital bed. Liu Ryan held my hand, checking my forehead for fever from time to time. Seeing that I was awake, her voice trembled with a hint of a sob. Honey, you're finally awake. You scared me to death. But how could a woman who seemed so deeply in love with me also betray me so completely? Liu Ryan stayed by my side until dawn. I was woken up by the ringing of her phone. When she saw me stir, she frowned and declined the call. But not long after, the phone rang again. This time, she didn't answer it either. The phone kept ringing incessantly. Eventually, the noise gave me a headache. You should just go back to the office, Liu Ryan, I said calmly. I'm fine now. I'll be discharged soon. Liu Ryan hesitated for 2 seconds, but eventually agreed. Alright, but you know how hectic things have been at the office these days. I really don't have a choice. I know. I understand. Before she could finish speaking, I interrupted with a smile. My easy acceptance of the situation only made her pause longer, as if unsure. But soon enough, a message from Fang Jiayu popped up on her phone. I caught a glimpse of it. He was dressed in a pilot's uniform, and I saw the glint of desire flicker in Liu Ryan's eyes. She tried to restrain herself, but still cautiously tested me. Are you sure you're okay, honey? If you're feeling unwell, you can always tell me. Your wife is and always will be your strongest support. I turned my face away, not meeting her gaze. I answered quietly, my tone even. She couldn't hold back anymore and stood up. Alright then, I'll head to the office to take care of some work. I promise I'll come back to pick you up tonight when you're discharged. It wasn't until Liu Ryan left that I realized my face was already soaked with tears. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to Fang Jiayu. Liu Ryan is on her way to you now. If you have any guts, make her finalize the divorce papers. It was as if he had been waiting for me all along. The reply came back almost instantly. Within 2 seconds of my message, since Mr. Zheng has decided to give up his position to me, I'll be sure to handle it well. Then I'll be sure to fulfill your wish. Isn't it just the divorce papers? President Liu loves me so much. Of course she signed them. The next moment, I sent the prepared divorce agreement to Fang Jiayu. Let's hope you stay this confident. I'm not like you, Mr. Zheng, the frail, sickly man. You have no idea how much Liu Ryan loves me. Even when it's that time of the month for her, she's eager to fight passionately with me. She's practically willing to die in my arms. Every time, she pushes me to my limits. I turned off my phone. Walking out of the hospital room, I stopped by to get a full checkup. Ever since Liu Ryan's bone marrow transplant saved my life, I had been undergoing regular maintenance and recovery treatments. Mr. Zheng, your current health is excellent. If you're considering starting a family, now is a perfect time. I used to look forward to recovering, so I could plan for a baby with Liu Ryan. But now it seemed completely unnecessary. Thank you, doctor. But there's no need for family planning. I just wanted to check on my bone marrow health. Having gotten the answers I needed, I left the examination room feeling satisfied. As I stepped out, I heard a familiar voice coming from the next room. Doctor, please check what's going on here. Liu Ryan's voice was hurried, accompanied by Fang Jiayu's pained screams. The doctor quickly conducted an examination, his tone tinged with disapproval. Bruising, endure it a bit. Even if you're young and healthy, you can't overdo it like this. My steps faltered for a moment, tears welling up in my eyes, but I forced them back. What incredible stamina. No wonder Fang Jiayu said my frail body could never satisfy Liu Ryan. With a bitter laugh at my own expense, I returned to my room and completed the discharge paperwork. I knew Liu Ryan wouldn't come to pick me up today, and I didn't want to wait any longer. As expected, when night fell, Liu Ryan finally called. I'm so sorry, Huan. There's still so much going on at the office right now. I won't be able to make it anytime soon. The promise I made to pick you up from the hospital, I'm afraid I'll have to break it again. Her voice over the phone carried guilt and remorse, but I no longer cared. I brushed her off with a few half-hearted words, then hung up. Back at the villa, I started packing my things. Though I hadn't earned much over the years, I had managed to buy myself a small apartment. Early the next morning, I hired movers to take my belongings to the apartment. That's when Liu Ryan came back, her face filled with shock as she saw me. Her voice trembled slightly. Huan, what are you doing? Are you running away from home? Are you leaving me? I suppressed the nausea rising in my chest, silently sighing to myself. She really picked the perfect time to come back. After all, the divorce papers weren't in my hands yet. I had no choice but to patiently reassure her. These are just some old things from the house. I'm planning to store them somewhere else. Otherwise, there won't be enough space here. The fear in Liu Ryan's eyes finally subsided a bit. But soon, she pulled an old photo album out of the pile of luggage. The album contained photos we'd taken over the years. Her eyes immediately reddened as she held it up. Huan, this is our wedding album. Are you really not going to leave it here? 5 years ago, my health wasn't in great condition. I couldn't endure wind, rain, or sun. It took a long time and great effort to take those wedding photos. At the time, Liu Ryan promised that she would cherish me like a treasure for the rest of her life, ensuring I lived in bliss. And I believed her. But now I realize her promises were only half-truths. Behind the sweet life she painted for me lay nothing but filth and betrayal. To avoid unnecessary complications, I took the album from her hands and placed it back. I planned to burn it as soon as I moved into the apartment. If I left it here, I'd never have the chance to destroy these memories. This album is outdated now, I said lightly. I was thinking of taking new photos instead. Don't you want to take new wedding photos with me? Hearing my words, Liu Ryan finally let her guard down completely. Her face relaxed, her eyes no longer wary as she looked at me with warmth. Seeing no trace of suspicion in her expression, she threw herself into my arms, holding me tightly. Just like before, she leaned her forehead gently against mine. Speaking of which, our 5th anniversary is coming up soon, she said softly. It's the perfect time to take our 5-year commemorative wedding photos. For every anniversary or birthday, Liu Ryan always remembered them clearly. Even if I forgot, she would remind me. Over the 10 years I'd known her, she had always brought me immense surprises for every occasion, making those moments deeply memorable. I turned to look at her. I remember it's tomorrow, isn't it? It's just right. I've got a surprise planned for you too. Liu Ryan seemed like she wanted to say something more, but seeing me head straight to the bedroom, she hesitated and closed her mouth. She started to follow me, only to find that I had already locked the door behind me. I just want to rest for a bit, I said flatly. Taking out my phone, I sent a message to Fang Jiayu. I'm giving you one last day. If you don't give me Liu Ryan's signed divorce papers by then, don't blame me for tearing up the agreement between us. Without waiting for his reply, I turned off my phone. Not long after, I heard Liu Ryan's voice outside the door. Huayan, I've already made breakfast for you. I have to head to the office, there's still a lot to do. Don't forget about the surprise you mentioned. I'm really looking forward to it. Her tone carried a hint of excitement, but I didn't respond. Only after hearing the sound of the front door closing did I step out of the bedroom. On the dining table sat my favorite breakfast, soy milk and fried dough sticks. Liu Ryan rarely cooked, and the fried dough sticks were slightly overcooked, a little too tough. The flavor was a bit bland as well. Beside the breakfast, there was a note. My dearest husband, have a wonderful day today. How ironic that a woman who claims to love me so much still ended up cheating. I didn't touch any of the food she prepared. Instead, I booked myself a ticket for a solo trip. I waited in the villa for Fang Jiayu to send over Liu Ryan's divorce papers. A message finally arrived from him. Huayan, I've sent you the documents. I hope you'll keep your promise. Don't worry, I replied. I always honor my word. Just make sure Liu Ryan doesn't come back home today. By the time she does, I'll be long gone. I signed my name on Liu Ryan's divorce agreement, then placed all the evidence of her affair with Fang Jiayu into an envelope and left it on the table. Liu Ryan, I hope you can accept the price of betrayal. In truth, I had known for a long time that Liu Ryan had grown distant. And I also knew that Fang Jiayu wasn't the first person she cheated with, nor would he be the last. 6 months ago, I had already met with Fang Jiayu. At that time, he was just a downtrodden young man, burdened with a family of gamblers for parents, a delinquent brother, and a petty thief of a younger sibling. His entire family depended on him to survive. Out of sympathy, I offered him a job as a gardener. On his very first day at work, he ended up in a heated argument with Liu Ryan because he didn't know how to operate the pruning machine. Not only did he butcher my favorite peach tree, but he also mangled his hand, leaving it bloody and torn. When he came to me for help, his eyes were brimming with tears, his expression pitiful and helpless. Liu Ryan, who rarely spoke unnecessarily, uncharacteristically interjected, "If you don't know how to do it, don't even try. All you do is create trouble, ruining things for others. Look at what you've done to Huayan's favorite peach tree. If that tree dies, you couldn't compensate for it even if you sold yourself." At the time, I didn't expect Liu Ryan to be so harsh. Although that peach tree was indeed my favorite, planted by my own hands on the day I married Liu Ryan, a tree was still just a tree. It could never compare to a person. Just as I was about to tell her to tone it down, Fang Jiayu stubbornly spoke up. "Don't worry, President Liu. Even if I have to die, I won't let the peach tree die." I knew Liu Ryan hated being contradicted, especially when she was angry. But soon I saw a spark of interest flicker in her eyes. She let out a soft "oh," drawing out the syllable with a teasing lilt. Ignoring the fresh blood dripping from his hand, Fang Jiayu wiped the tears from his face, leaving a streak of crimson across his cheek. "If the peach tree dies, then I, Fang Jiayu, will repay it with my life." Liu Ryan didn't say another word. She simply kept twisting the ring on her finger. I was familiar with these small gestures of hers. It was an unconscious act triggered by a deep-seated desire. In the past, it always happened during our most joyous moments. Liu Ryan would press her body tightly against mine. Again and again, she would take what she wanted. That jade ring on her finger would spin constantly with her movements. But now, her target had changed. And honestly, it made sense. The charming young men from wealthy families around her were always refined and generous. When had she ever encountered someone like Fang Jiayu, stubborn, pitiful, and yet disarmingly youthful and unguarded? After that day, Fang Jiayu devoted all his attention to the peach blossom tree. He practically ate, lived, and slept with it. afraid it might show even the slightest abnormality. At some point, I often saw Liu Ryan gazing through the study window, staring at Fang Jiayu. Fang Jiayu had unsettled her heart. When she returned, she often bore suspicious lip marks on her collar. Perhaps at that time, Liu Ryan hadn't truly betrayed me. She was merely skirting the edges of infidelity. But to me, the result was the same. Even so, I gave Liu Ryan a chance. You seem very concerned about Fang Jiayu, I said. He does seem rather pitiful. Why not let him be your younger brother? Liu Ryan refused without hesitation, her face tinged with a mocking sneer. That skinny, dark-skinned kid? What qualifications does he have to be my brother? It was at that moment I truly understood. This woman's heart had changed over the years. She refused to accept Fang Jiayu as her younger brother. It was due to the thoughts surging within her heart. By chance, Fang Jiayu overheard this remark. Without saying a word, he ran off. I don't know why, so late at night, he would go to Liu Ryan's study. Or perhaps Liu Ryan had been waiting there deliberately. Soon after, Liu Ryan unusually lit a lady's cigarette. Ever since we got married, because of my poor health, Liu Ryan never smoked in front of me. It seemed this time, she was truly moved. After leaving, I went to find Fang Jiayu. In his defiant gaze, I saw something called ambition. So I decided to give him a chance, rather than letting her sneak around outside. It would be better to have someone I could monitor closely. On the morning of our 5th anniversary, Liu Ryan returned home in high spirits. Even though it was pouring rain outside, she didn't hesitate for a moment. Along the way, her heart was beating erratically, as if something meaningful had happened. It made her feel terribly uneasy. Instinctively, Liu Ryan took out her phone and called Huai. But all she heard was a series of phone switched off messages. She must have neglected Huai in these past few days. It's fine. She began to comfort herself until she opened the villa gate. Inside, it was pitch dark. A sudden thought popped into her mind. Zheng Huayan wasn't home. But how could he not be? Today was their 5th wedding anniversary. They had agreed to celebrate this special day together. He had even promised to prepare a surprise for her. With that thought, Liu Ryan quickly turned on the villa's lights. But when she saw a divorce agreement lying on the table, she froze completely, her mind feeling as though it had exploded into chaos. It was an unmanageable mess. Why would they suddenly be divorcing? There hadn't been any arguments, no fights. Everything had been fine before they parted ways. No! Liu Ryan quickly sensed something was off. That day, Zheng Huayan had sent away their wedding photo and many of their old memories. He had even locked her out of the house. 10 years of knowing each other. 5 years of marriage. That day was the first time he had ever locked her out. But back then, she had been distracted by a phone call from Fang Jiayu, completely forgetting to delve deeper into why she had been shut out. In her frustration, Liu Ryan angrily slapped herself hard across the face. Such an unusual act, and yet she had let it slip from her mind so easily. But she quickly composed herself. She began recalling every single detail, even trying to comfort herself. It's fine, she told herself. As long as the divorce agreement hadn't been signed, Huayan would eventually come back. But when she flipped through the divorce papers in her hand, the bold, swirling signatures of both parties were already there. Liu Ryan rubbed her eyes in disbelief, only to realize it was all real. How could this be? How could I have signed it? She quickly remembered that a few days ago, in her moment of exhilaration, she had signed an agreement Fang Jiayu had given her. It had been a housing purchase contract Fang Jiayu claimed to be handling. How could it have turned into her divorce agreement? A rush of blood surged through Liu Ryan's head. At this point, there wasn't time to uncover the conspiracy behind the divorce papers. The most pressing issue now was how much Zheng Huayan knew about her infidelity. At the thought of this, Liu Ryan couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh, because she knew how meticulous Zheng Huayan was. Although his health wasn't the best, his mind was sharper and more attentive than most people's. Yet she had clung to the naive hope that he wouldn't discover her actions by some coincidence. Step by step, she had sunk deeper into the abyss of mistakes until there was no turning back. Suddenly, Liu Ryan thought of the most terrifying question. Could she still earn his forgiveness? He had always been someone who couldn't tolerate even the smallest flaw, and yet she had committed the most fatal mistake. Weakly, she set the divorce papers down. The envelope on the table caught Liu Ryan's attention. When she picked it up, she hesitated, unable to summon the courage to open it. She was terrified it might be his farewell letter, equally final. But when Liu Ryan finally opened it, she found countless photos of her and Fang Jiayu in intimate moments. There were also transcripts of every conversation she had ever shared with Fang Jiayu. Zheng Huayan's final words were written at the bottom. I've made my decision. Let's see if you have the ability to hold on to Liu Ryan. A mouthful of blood sprayed from Liu Ryan's lips. Her beloved Zheng Huayan was gone. This time, it was final. No matter how much she didn't want to believe it, she could only accept this reality. The next moment, Liu Ryan hurriedly wiped the blood from her lips. Then she drove straight to the hospital. Fang Jiayu was still admitted, recovering from bruises. When Liu Ryan arrived, he tried to rush over and hug her with a playful smile, but she kicked him down to the ground with brutal force. Without a word, she followed up with several more kicks. Then, grabbing his hair, she hauled him up violently. What the hell do you think you are? You dared to send messages to my husband and even trick me into signing the divorce agreement? Didn't I warn you? Don't ever let my husband find out about us. And yet, you had the audacity to contact him directly. Fang Jiayu's scalp felt as though it was about to be torn clean off by Liu Ryan's wrath. His face was already twisted in agony. If I'm willing to toy with you as I please, it's because I couldn't care less whether you live or die. You were just trash my husband picked up to run errands. I wouldn't even let my husband suffer a scratch. Not even the slightest grievance. And you dared to make him uncomfortable and unhappy? Fang Jiayu was already in so much pain he couldn't speak. His not yet recovered body began to bleed profusely, leaving his wounds a mangled mess. It wasn't until the hospital doctors and nurses rushed over and forcibly pulled Liu Ryan away. Don't think that just because my husband is gone, you can rise to take his place. Let me tell you, Fang Jiayu, if my husband doesn't come back, you can spend the rest of your miserable life waiting. Hearing Liu Ryan's cold, heartless words, Fang Jiayu suddenly appeared maddeningly deranged. Liu Ryan, someone like you, a beast, dreaming of Zheng Huayan coming back? Let me tell you it'll never happen in this lifetime. All the vile things you've done, Zheng Huayan has known about them for a long time. Even if it weren't because of me, Zheng Huayan still would have left you. These words struck deep into the hidden recesses of Liu Ryan's heart. Her face contorted with rage, and she screamed hysterically, "Shut up! My husband will come back." When Liu Ryan was finally dragged out of the hospital by security guards, I was lounging on a foreign beach, basking comfortably in the sunlight. Regarding Liu Ryan and Fang Jiayu's situation, it didn't take long for me to find out. He was the one who contacted me first. Fang Jiayu could no longer endure Liu Ryan's torment. He begged me to return. Zheng Huayan, I admit it, I've lost. Please come back. If you don't, Liu Ryan might really kill me. When I received Fang Jiayu's call, his voice was trembling and hoarse, interrupted by the sound of sharp, pained gasps. It was evident he was at his limit. I took off my sunglasses, lazily turned over on my sunbed, and said, I warned you back then that Liu Ryan wasn't a kind person. You didn't listen. Now that the truth has come to light, you'll just have to endure it. When the time is right, I'll return on my own. Hearing that I had no intention of coming back, Fang Jiayu dropped the pretense. He tore off all civility and said, "Aren't you afraid I'll tell Liu Ryan that the reason she and I got involved in the first place was because you were pulling the strings behind the scenes?" That's right. Everything that happened was part of my scheme. Ever since I discovered Liu Ryan's infidelity, I began plotting how to exact my revenge. The ambitious Fang Jiayu was nothing more than a pawn in my game. He helped me gather all the evidence of her betrayal, so I could divorce her and leave her to spend the rest of her life wallowing in guilt and shame. I couldn't help but chuckle. And what if you do tell her? At this point, do you think I'd still care? The divorce agreement was already signed. Even if she found out, she would only hate you more for deceiving her. She'd only want me to come back to her even more. And don't think I don't know. Even without my interference, you were planning to seduce Liu Ryan anyway. Otherwise, why would you have been outside her study that night? So when I brought up this plan to you back then, you were more interested than anyone else. Ambition was written all over your face. Every time you shared intimate moments with Liu Ryan, you'd eagerly send me updates afterward. Don't tell me you weren't trying to provoke me. Fang Jiayu, don't make yourself out to be so pitiful, so innocent. You claimed this was an agreement between us, that I'd create opportunities for you. As long as you could get Liu Ryan to sign the divorce agreement, then I would divorce her and leave her, giving you the chance to take my place. Everything I promised, I fulfilled. The rest is on you. Your inability to hold on to Liu Ryan has nothing to do with me. Zheng Huan. Fang Jiayu fell silent in an instant. The agreement between him and me had indeed been carried out completely. Convincing me to return wasn't part of that deal. Only now did Fang Jiayu realize the true place I held in Liu Ryan's heart. Yet he had no way to change it. All he could do was pray that I would return to the country soon. Otherwise, under Liu Ryan's torment these days, he was living a life worse than death. Zheng Huan, what will it take for you to come back to the country? Just wait. Soon, the day I returned to the country, Liu Ryan heard the news from Fang Jiayu. As soon as I got off the plane and stepped out of the airport, I saw Liu Ryan parked by the roadside, waiting for me. She walked briskly toward me in a few quick steps. Her expression blank and dazed. She looked much thinner, missing the confident and spirited demeanor she used to have. Hubby ... I quickly stepped back to paces, avoiding her approach. I kept my distance. Just call me by my name instead. Liu Ryan froze for 2 seconds. Then, with a complicated expression, she finally called my name. Zheng Huan, you finally come back. Unlike her excitement, I remained indifferent. The love I had for her over 10 years had long disappeared during the countless times she shared intimate moments with Fang Jiayu. It's been a month. Our divorce cooling off period is over. Are you ready for the divorce, Liu Ryan? Her eyes filled with fear, almost spilling over into tears. She shook her head resolutely. I won't divorce you. I know I was wrong, but my heart still loves you. My love for you has never diminished, not even for a single day. Huan, you know I love you more than my own life. I believed those words from Liu Ryan, but that didn't justify her betrayal. Her love couldn't excuse her infidelity. So, is that your reason for cheating on me? Yes, back then, you did donate your bone marrow to save my life. So now, do you think that gives you the right to keep me by your side forever? Treating me like a puppet, deceiving and mocking me? Do you want me to live my life as a fool, pretending I know nothing for the rest of my days? Liu Ryan, don't make excuses for your infidelity. If you want my forgiveness, know that this time I've come back not for reconciliation, but to divorce you and to give your bone marrow back to you. In an instant, the fear in Liu Ryan's eyes magnified, as if it were a tidal wave drowning her, leaving her unable to breathe. No, Huan! Don't do something so foolish. I was truly wrong. You'll hurt yourself doing this. It might even kill you on the operating table. Well then, that will leave a deep impression on you. For a lifetime, Liu Ryan staggered and collapsed to the floor, her entire body drenched in sweat. During my time abroad, I found a bone marrow donor who matched me perfectly. The day after I returned, I scheduled the procedure to replace the bone marrow. When Liu Ryan heard this news, she wanted nothing more than to rush to my side and stop me. But soon, her plans were thwarted. The parents, brothers, and other family members of Fang Jiayu showed up at Liu Ryan's company, unrolling a long banner in their hands. The banner read, "CEO Liu Ryan, you ruined my son's life, and you crippled him." It quickly attracted a large crowd of onlookers. Fang Jiayu sat in a wheelchair, glaring at Liu Ryan with hatred. Soon after, Fang Jiayu's family called the police. She was taken to the police station to resolve the matter. After spending a large sum of money to privately settle the issue, she emerged only to find out that I was already lying in the hospital's operating room. The surgery was extremely risky. The doctors had tried to dissuade me numerous times, but I had no real concerns. In fact, I even thought about how, if I died on the operating table, I wondered what kind of expression Liu Ryan would have. Liu Ryan, this time I'm completely cutting ties with you. On the day the divorce was finalized, Liu Ryan wandered aimlessly, her frail figure looking as though a gust of wind could blow her over. As we left the Civil Affairs Bureau, Liu Ryan called out to me, "Huayan, wasn't Fang Jiayu under your instructions from the very beginning? She wasn't foolish. How could a naive, inexperienced young man handle tasks as intricate as pruning flowers and plants, a job suited only for professionals? If the intention had been merely to help him, there were plenty of simple cleaning tasks available in the villa." From the moment Fang Jiayu mysteriously appeared at the Gu family villa, to the point where she gradually found herself attracted to him, to the chats between Fang Jiayu and me, and finally to when I inexplicably drove him out, only for her to take him into her company as her secretary. Liu Ryan quickly pieced it all together. I didn't deny it. I casually asked her, "Do you remember the vows we made when we got married? You swore many oaths, but I told you I'd exact my revenge in my own way. To punish you." Liu Ryan's frail body began trembling uncontrollably. She let out a bitter laugh. "But Huayan, I loved you." The company's reputation was now in tatters, and Liu Ryan herself had become a notorious figure in social circles. She had lost the person she loved the most, and everything else along with it. I couldn't help but laugh. "Liu Ryan, is there any point in saying all this now?" "There is. We can start over. We can remarry." The next moment, I pulled a report out of my bag. It was a certificate of my permanent infertility. "This last bone marrow replacement surgery has left me completely infertile. If you can restore everything I've lost, I wouldn't mind remarrying you. But can you, Liu Ryan, make that happen?" She was suddenly at a loss for words, her gaze fixated on the report that had fallen to the ground. Unable to believe that the surgery could have such severe side effects. They could have had a beautiful future together, but she had destroyed it all with her own hands. A wretched scream burst out from Liu Ryan, a hysterical cry of anguish. She collapsed weakly to the ground, her hands clutching her head tightly. I walked away, of course, without telling her that the so-called infertility report was fake. I wanted Liu Ryan to live the rest of her life in guilt and regret. Those who break their vows must face punishment. The end.